Halloween, the time when everyone can become a monster or reveal his true monstrous side. One night that can determine your fate, so choose your plans wisely. These are the top 5 horrific true crimes committed on Halloween. Welcome to the Paranormal Post. I'm Clayton Morris. If you love true stories of the unexplained, then smash that like button. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. And please subscribe to the channel. Also, there's one more step that you can do, and that's to turn on that bell notification so you'll be notified as soon as we publish a brand new video. Halloween night is the one time per year where everyone can dress like someone or something else without being called weird. It's an open invitation for all ages to enjoy one spooky night together, or each in his own safe place. But just like every other holiday, everyone can blend in, which becomes a problem. It becomes a problem for the true monsters of the world. Despite crimes being committed on a nearly daily basis, the ones committed on Halloween are bound to give you chills down your spine. Just to think that someone, somewhere, right now, might be killed with a masked man that will never be identified. In this video, you will get to know some of the true crimes that took place on Halloween night, so make sure you watch until the end. Number 5, the man who killed on Halloween. On Halloween of 1974, after a long night of trick-or-treating, 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien went home ready to dig into his collection of candy, just like we all would. His father, Ronald, gave him a pixie stick as his last piece of candy to wrap up that fun for the night. Young Timothy, overfilled with joy, began his candy dinner, eating all of that candy. With that said, a decision that cost him his life. An hour later, Timothy began vomiting, convulsing, and finally died on his way to the hospital. There was no doubt that the child had been poisoned. Upon further investigation, they found that the same pixie stick that was given to Timothy was rimmed with cyanide, which sadly resulted in near immediate death. The police were unable to pin the crime on Ronald, since it was Halloween and the candy could have been given to Timothy by just about anyone in the neighborhood. They investigated everyone that may or may not have seen Timothy on Halloween and given him candy that night, including the father. Eventually, Ronald's story of what happened that night began changing, as a lie often does. That was the police's cue to arrest him and began piecing together the right timeline. It was later revealed that Ronald had given the same cyanide candy to his other children, but they were lucky enough not to eat it. It was also later released to the public that Ronald was in debt and having taken out life insurance money for his kids. A year later, and with a clear motive and evidence that he tampered with the candy, Ronald O'Brien was given the death sentence by lethal injection in Texas. The story gained traction and Ronald was given the nickname the Candyman, and the man who killed Halloween. And to this day, concerned parents and children check every piece of candy year-round because, as you see sometimes, the monster is on the inside. Number 4, the Toolbox Killers. Shirley Ledford was a 16-year-old girl and a blossoming future on what was ultimately cut down. On the Halloween night of 1979, Shirley was in a gas station, stopping for a snack while hitchhiking home from a party in the Sunland, Tungunga suburbs in Los Angeles. Shirley was then asked if she wanted a lift home from Bittaker and Norris, to which she recognized after Bittaker, who frequented the restaurant where she worked. Shortly after getting into the van, she was driven into a secluded street where Norris drew a knife and then proceeded to bind and gag her. Over the course of the following 2 hours, Ledford deeply regretted ever stepping inside her home. The pair continued driving in secluded areas where they switched between torturing the poor teenager and driving. First came Bittaker, who sadly was friendly-faced that led her to that moment in the first place. He tormented her, slapped her, punched her on various areas of her body, all while saying things like, "Say something," or "Scream louder." He then punched her several times in the breasts and tortured her with the pliers and a sledgehammer. Began raping, sodomizing her. Poor Shirley was screaming the entire time. Then shortly after Norris and Bittaker switched places, Norris grabbed the sledgehammer, as we mentioned before, and proceeded to hit Ledford multiple times on her left elbow while asking her to scream more. He even screamed with her, as a way of telling her that no one will ever hear anything. After 2 hours of inexplicable pain, Norris then strangled Shirley with a wire coat hanger. Surely enough, they ditched the body on an ivy bed on someone's front lawn. The body was then discovered by a jogger the next morning, and an autopsy revealed that in addition to have been sexually violated, she had died of strangulation after receiving extensive blunt force trauma to the face, the head, breast, the left elbow, with her olecranon sustaining multiple fractures. Genitalia, rectum, been torn, caused in part by Bittaker having inserted pliers inside her body. Now, if you're wondering, how did they remember all the grisly details and how are they meticulously listed? It's because Bittaker and Norris were keeping a voice recording of everything that happened. The pair are now known by the same name, the Toolbox Killers. Number 3, the Nun Murderer. On October 31st, 1981, Halloween night, in St. Francis Convent, the naked body of a 76-year-old nun by the name of Tadea Bence was found raped, stabbed, and strangled to death. Upon finding the horrific crime scene, the other nuns also noticed the broken window in the community room, and having quickly alerted the police, which found Sister Tadea's clothes along with a knife under her bed. After interrogating eyewitnesses, one confirmed seeing the then 17-year-old Johnny Frank Garrett, who lived across the street. He was running away from the convent the night of the crime. After also finding a shirt that belonged to Johnny, the police quickly arrested him. At Garrett's trial, his lawyers have said that he was insane and that he had multiple mental health issues in addition to having suffered from sexual and physical abuse as a child. Warren Clark, one of the lawyers, has said, "I think he's simply too crazy to kill." But prosecutors insisted that he was well aware of his actions, thus denying them, despite the DNA found at the crime scene and the witness who claimed that they saw him fleeing the convent. In February 1992, 10 years later, Johnny Frank Garrett was executed by lethal injection. His last words were, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my ass." Number 2, middle school teacher turns sinister. On Halloween of 2016, in Fort Worth, Texas, the teacher, Kerry Heath, and his wife, Tiffany, attended a Halloween party where they were chatting with Hyneel Harris and Philip Evans and some other neighbors in the wee hours of the morning. And after everyone went home, the forementioned people were still standing in the driveway talking, and the witnesses could only describe the conversation as cordial. Then Kerry went home. A few minutes later, he came out with a rifle, and he killed both men. After both lifeless bodies fell to the ground, Kerry then proceeded to smash their skull with the end of the rifle. When the witness tried to stop him, he pointed the rifle at them, saying, "You got a problem?" Then the Heaths went back home, and Kerry asked his wife to clean the blood off the rifle case as if nothing happened. Despite the obvious intent of manslaughter, Kerry did not get the death sentence. Rather, he got an automatic life sentence without the possibility of parole. The truth as to what happened that night is still a mystery. Kerry has never revealed what the conversation was about, but the prosecutors were adamant that it must have taken a great deal of anger to not only shoot a person, but then to mercilessly crash the skulls of the dead bodies with a rifle. Tiffany is also now on trial due to her role in the attempted cover-up of the killings. And number 1, the son of Sam. It's Halloween night 1981, and in a third-floor duplex apartment at 207 West 22nd Street, New York City, 39-year-old photographer Ronald Sisman is taking pictures of his 19-year-old student girlfriend, Elizabeth Platzman. The couple got a loud bang at the door, and when Sisman went to answer it, a group of men wearing a cheap plastic Halloween mask rushed in, and they took turns in beating and interrogating the couple, while making one watch the other being mercilessly beaten. At last, the group shot the couple in the back of their heads, execution style, and left the same way they came in. At first, the police thought the crime was revenge for several unpaid drug debts. Upon further investigation, the police found that Ronald Sisman was rumored to be involved in the drug trading scene, and in May 1980, he was accused by Melanie Haller, a then budding actress, of attempting to force her to take drugs during a photo shoot, made sexual advances on her, and even gave her cocaine and became angry when she refused to do so. The lawsuit was abruptly dropped after Melanie refused to cooperate with investigators. It was believed that foul play was involved, and she got intimidated by Sisman and feared the untimely end of her starting career. However, investigators were baffled when a prison informant in Rikers Island told them of how one of his fellow inmates had somehow predicted the crime weeks before it actually happened. The inmate turned out to be none other than the notorious Son of Sam, also known as David Berkowitz. Berkowitz was convicted for 8 shooting incidents, but the story he told police was what's shocking. David said that he was simply obeying the commands of a demon who manifested itself in the form of a dog's name, Harvey, which belonged to his neighbor, Sam. He later confessed in prison that the dog story was a hoax, but that he was part of a wider satanic conspiracy. Of course, the police investigated Berkowitz after his oddly accurate predictions. They found that he may not have committed all of the crimes that he was convicted of on his own. According to the prison informant, he said that Berkowitz told him that the satanic cult was planning to enter a residence near Greenwich Village on Halloween, that they will perform a ritual murder by ceremonially torturing the couple before shooting them in the head. Then they'll ransack the place to remove any incriminating evidence. Berkowitz claimed that Ronald Sisman was asked by the cult to film one of the murders they committed. Once the murder was on film, Sisman began to act out, and it was believed that he possessed a master copy of the footage and was planning to hand it over to authorities to avoid some drug charges. No incriminating history was ever found for Elizabeth Plotzman. The poor teenager was just in the wrong place at the wrong time on that Halloween night. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber so you'll never miss one of our videos. And go ahead and share it with one of your Halloween mystery-loving friends. And let me know in the comments which of these true Halloween crime stories scared you the most. I know which one scared me the most. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.